In this lesson, we're going to work on adding and subtracting rational expressions. So think about how you added and subtracted fractions when you were in elementary school, and that's what we're going to be doing here. So for example, if I had to add 1/3 plus 3/4, I first need a common denominator. So my common denominator is going to be a number that both 4 and 3 go into. And sometimes the easiest way to find that is to just multiply them together. 3 times 4 is 12. So my LCD is going to be 12. So in order to get that common denominator, my first fraction needs a 4. And if I multiply by 4 on the numerator and denominator, I essentially just multiplied by 1 because 4 over 4 is equal to 1. So that makes this first fraction 1/12. And then on my second fraction, to make my denominator a 12, I need to multiply by 3. So I multiply by 3 on the numerator and denominator. And that makes this one, the first one's 4/12. And that makes the second one 9/12. Now that they have a common denominator, I add them together. 4 plus 9 is 13, and there's my answer, 13/12. So the key is whatever is missing on your denominator, you multiply by that number on the numerator and denominator to accomplish your least common denominator, your LCD. So let's do the same thing over here. Notice we have the same denominator, so we're still going to go with a common denominator of 12, which means my first fraction needs a 4/4, and my second fraction needs a 3/3, so that my denominators will both be 12. So the first fraction becomes 4x/12, and my second fraction would become 9x/12. And now I can add them together because I have a common denominator. 4x plus 9x is 13x/12. And that is how it works. Let's try another one. This one says 3x/x plus 4 plus x/5. And I need a common denominator, something that both of these denominators will go into. So what I usually do is I just take the biggest denominator and I write it down. I'm going to say, okay, x plus 4 is part of my common denominator. Then I look at my second fraction and there's a 5. Do I have a 5 as part of my common denominator? I do not. So I need to multiply by 5. This is my common denominator. 5 goes into the denominator and x plus 4 goes into the denominator. So my first fraction, in order to accomplish this, needs a 5. So I multiply by 5 on the numerator and denominator, and that becomes 15x/5x plus 4. Notice we're not going to multiply this denominator out. We're going to leave it in factored form. On my second fraction, I have the 5, but I need x plus 4 to make my denominators match. So whatever you multiply by on the denominator, you also multiply on the numerator, the x plus 4. So when I distribute this x, my numerator becomes x squared plus 4x over my denominator, 5x plus 4. Since both of my fractions have the new common denominator, I can just add the numerators together. So 5 parentheses x plus 4 is my denominator. My numerator, I'm going to combine like terms. 15x plus 4x is 19x. And then I don't have anything to add with the x squared. So my answer would be x squared plus 19x over 5x plus 4. So the key again, whatever you multiply by on the denominator, you also multiply the numerator. And you only add or subtract if you have that least common denominator. So in our next few questions, it's just about finding the common denominator. And I may go a little bit further than that just for practice, but let's take a look. On my first one, I've got a 5 and an x. I think my common denominator is just going to be 5x. So if I went back and used my common denominator, this one would become x over 5x, Oops, I'll do a colon there, semicolon. And this one, if I wanted it to be 5x, would get a 5. So remember, whatever I was missing on the bottom, I multiply on the top. If I was missing an x on the bottom, I multiply by an x on the numerator. Let's take a look at number 2. I've got a 5x and a 2x. Now, if I multiply these together, I get 10x squared, but that might not be the least common denominator. So if I take that strategy I had before where I just write one of the denominators down, then I look at the second denominator. Is there a 2 in this? There's not, so I need a 2. Is there an x? There is. So in this case, my common denominator, my least common denominator, is 10x. Could I use 10x squared? That is a common denominator, it's just not the least. And we're looking to do the least. So I already had an x represented. I didn't have to do another x for this one because it's already there, 2x. Number 3, now we're getting into it. X squared minus 1 and x plus 1. Well, we all know x squared minus 1 can be factored, so I should do that first. X plus 1, x minus 1. So when I'm looking for my common denominator, I'm just going to write this one down. I always just look at whatever the biggest one is, I just write it down. So that first denominator is included. Look at the second denominator. Is x plus 1 represented over here? It is. So I don't need it again. It's already represented there. And that would be my least common denominator. So if I were doing an operation with these two, my second fraction would have needed an x minus 1 on the numerator and the denominator. And my first fraction would be all set because I've already got the common denominator. Let's look at number 4. My denominators are x plus 4 and x minus 4. And my least common denominator is just going to be those two multiplied together. X plus 4 right there, x minus 4 right there. So if they don't have anything in common, sometimes we just multiply them together. Take a look at number 5. 3x and then 6x squared plus 9x can be factored. What do they have in common? A 3x, and that would leave me an x plus 3. So if I followed my pattern, just write down the biggest denominator, and then you look at the other denominators to see if they're represented. So 3x, x plus 3 came from the second one. Is the first denominator represented over here? 3x, 3x. So this is my common denominator. I don't need anything else to include both denominators. And number 6, I've got a 2x plus 3, and then I have this that needs to be factored. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes the smaller denominator might be a clue to help you factor. So if I factor this, I know a lot of you are going to go to your box and you'll say, okay, 4x squared and 9. So what are factors of 36 that add up to 12? And I hope you notice that it's 6x. So if I factor this, my GCF here is 2x, and here it's 3. 2x and 3. So it's 2x plus 3, 2x plus 3. So again, write down the biggest denominator you can find, and then see if anything else needs to be multiplied in there. So the second denominator is 2x plus 3. Already got it. So that is my common denominator. Let's take a look at number 7. All right, I see 3 totally different denominators. So I'm just going to write one of them down, x plus 1. Okay, got the first denominator. How about the second one, x plus 4? I need it. So I'll write that factor. And then my last denominator is a 5. I don't have a 5 anywhere. So I'll multiply that in. And there is my least common denominator. So if you can get the concept of finding that common denominator, adding and subtracting gets a lot easier. All right. So now we're going to do some addition and subtraction. And one of the other things that's added in here, it says state the restrictions for x. The restrictions are going to be anything that makes the denominator equal 0. Because our denominator can't be 0, that makes the fraction undefined. So when we get our common denominator, we'll figure out what the restrictions are. So let's try this. Look at number 8. Look at my denominators. So I'm going to start out and just say x plus 1 is going to be part of my denominator. And then I see this x. Now some people are going to say, well, oh, look, there's an x right there. But this is an x, and this is an x plus 1. X plus 1 is a factor, and that's a package deal. So x is separate. So I need a separate x for this one, and then an x plus 1 for the first one. There's my common denominator. Now, what restrictions could I set on this? What makes this denominator equal 0? Well, if x is 0, or if x plus 1 is 0. So there are my restrictions on the denominator. X can't be 0, x can't be negative 1. And then we go back and we add these. So I know I want my common denominator to be x plus 1. So for my first fraction to have this denominator, it needs an extra x. And remember, whatever I do on the bottom, I also do on the top. So my numerator here becomes 2x squared. My denominator is my common one. On the second fraction, for this to be the common denominator, it needs an x plus 1. And so I'm going to do that on the numerator and denominator. So my denominator is this. My numerator is 1 times this, so x plus 1. And I don't think I can combine any like terms. So there we go. That is the sum of those two fractions. All right, next up, a very similar problem. So my common denominator, I've got my x plus 4. And remember, this x is different because this x is attached to the 4. So I need a separate x that's all by itself. So that's my common denominator, my LCD. And my restrictions are going to be whatever makes this equal 0. Well, x can't be 0 because then that would be 0. And this one, x can't be negative 4 because that would make this one equal to 0. So there are my restrictions. Let's add these together. I know my common denominator is x plus 4. So for the first fraction, what's missing? I have the x plus 4 part. I just need the x part. So 3x times x is 3x squared. For my second fraction, I've got the x part, but I need the x plus 4. So I distribute my 2 and get plus 2x plus 8. And I'm done. I can't simplify the numerator any further. All right, let's keep on. Number 10. So my common denominator, I'm just going to write the first one down, 5x. Now look at the second one. Do I have a 5? I do. Do I have an x minus 4? Not yet. So there's my common denominator. It includes everything I need from each denominator. Now, what would my restrictions be? Well, what makes this part equal 0? That'd be 0. And what makes this part equal 0? That would be 4. Those are my restrictions. Now let's go ahead and, this time it's subtraction. So we have to be really careful with subtraction. To be safe, I'm going to make it plus negative 12. Because sometimes if we have that subtraction in the middle, we forget. So I'm going to make sure I know that 12 is going to get the negative because subtraction is adding the opposite. All right, my common denominator has the 5x and the x minus 4. So what is the first denominator missing? Well, it's missing an x minus 4. So this numerator needs to be multiplied by x minus 4. Oh, do you remember how to multiply x minus 4 times x minus 4? We distribute twice. So I get x squared minus 4x. Then I distribute again, minus another 4x plus 16, because that was negative 4 times negative 4. That's just my first fraction. My second fraction, compare denominators. What's missing from this denominator to my common denominator? Just an x. Just needs an extra x. So that'll make that minus 12x. And I'm going to simplify my numerator as much as I can. Isn't a whole lot, but I can. Let's see. Negative 4 and negative 4 is negative 8 minus 12. That's negative 20x plus 16. And then there's my common denominator, 5x, x minus 4. Number 11. I need to factor my denominator here, x plus 5x minus 5. So my least common denominator, I'll just write down the biggest one I see. And then I look at the other denominator and think, is x minus 5 already included? It is. So that's my common denominator. My restrictions, what would make this equal 0? Negative 5 or positive 5? Those are my restrictions. So over here, my common denominator is the x plus 5, x minus 5. Remember, we're just going to leave it factored. And my first fraction is missing the x plus 5. So I need an x plus 5 on the numerator and denominator. So we'll go ahead and multiply that. 3x squared plus 15. Now my second fraction is not missing anything. So remember, this was a minus. So it's a minus 2. It's a subtraction problem. So finish simplifying our numerator. It's 3x squared plus 13 over our common denominator, x plus 5x minus 5. And one more. This looks like a doozy. We can do it. We can do what we've learned. Well, I need to factor this first one. What are factors of 12 that add up to 7? I'm going to go with 3 and 4. So let's write that down. Just take one of the denominators and write it down. It's for our LCD. And now look at the second denominator. I've got an x plus 3. I don't have the little x by itself. So we're going to put u out there. So now the second denominator, x plus 3, is covered. How about the third denominator, just the plain old x? Well, there it is. So there's my common denominator, which means my first fraction is good to go, almost. What's missing? I need that x. So we're going to multiply the top and bottom by another x. So that gives me x squared. My second fraction, compared to the common denominator, what's missing? It needs an x plus 4. So 4 times x plus 4 gives me 4x plus 16. And then my last fraction needs the whole x plus 3x plus 4. Now, fortunately for us, I know what that is if I multiply it together. It was this x squared plus 7x plus 12. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply that together so that I can distribute my 3. Now, I'm not just distributing a 3. It's a subtraction. I'm distributing a negative 3. So here goes. Negative 3x squared minus 21x minus 36 all over, I'm just going to draw an arrow, my common denominator. We'll write it out in the next step. So let's combine like terms. X squared minus 3x squared is negative 2x squared. 4x minus 21x is negative 17x. And then 16 minus 36 is negative 20. So we simplified our numerator, and our common denominator stays factored. And that is the answer. So take your time with your denominator, pick out what's missing, what you need to multiply by on the top and bottom, and combine your like terms on your numerator.